One of the things I always get asked is how do I get such good prices on graphics cards and processors and whatnot. They always look at the prices on Kijiji and Craigslist and eBay and they go, I can't buy a Radeon 7950 for 80 bucks. How the fuck were you able to do that up in Canada? A lot of where I find these optimal deals has to do with the fact that I'm really good at getting what I want out of people, and it's just a reality you guys have to kind of face. So after the break, what we're going to do is run through a series of tips and tricks with role-playing exercises included, all about how to become a better negotiator. But before you can even begin to even consider negotiating, you have to have a price in mind. You have to know precisely how much your item is worth on the open market on average, and then come up with a price range in your head of how much you are willing to pay for that item. Depending on whether it's for resale or for personal use, this will change accordingly. Search your eBay completed listings to satisfy this requirement. Throw in some Kijiji and some Craigslist searches, come up with a number, and then your target. Now, once you've got your target, rule number one is sometimes it's bad to negotiate. Let me show you exactly what I mean by that. I'll be right back. Okay, well, this here I just bought literally 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago from a guy, just about 10 minutes drive away from my house, not even. It was rush hour, so it's actually like a 5-minute drive if you're going when there's not cars on the street. And as you can see, it's a Lian Li HTPC case, but what's inside it is, of course, what I was interested in. It contains, let's open it up and see. Oh, that's dusty. All right, let's see if I can prop it up here. Yeah. Okay. I know you can probably not hear me, but it has a Corsair AX850 power supply in it. It's got a Noctua, I think that's their 92mm cooler. I don't exactly know which one, but both fans on it. There's an i7-920 under the hood there with a working P6T Asus motherboard, X58, which is very important. It's got a Samsung SSD, I think it's 128 gigabytes, so nothing really too great there, and an R9 270, and of course a very nice case to go with it all, and 6 gigs of RAM. You wanted 280 bucks for this flat. It was an asking price, and of course I ate it the fuck up as soon as I found it, because sometimes negotiating is a bad idea. Now why, you ask? Well, it's pretty simple if you think about it. Sometimes people underprice their items for a reason. Space is important for people with tiny houses like mine. I sell a lot of shit for very low prices from time to time, simply because I want to get it the fuck out of my house. And this gentleman, who looked like he had a wife and some kids and responsibilities and whatnot, probably didn't give a fuck about the extra $100 or $200 he could have gotten for this thing and just wanted it out the door. He listed it for a price that he knew would move the item, and I just happened to be the first to reply. When I got to his house and I said, "Thank you for the deal, it's quite the steal," he said, "Yes, I know, 4 other fucking people were behind you chomping at the bit." I knew I had gotten a good deal, and I walked out of there very happy. But assuming that the item you have in mind is not within that range of just fucking take it and deal, there are steps you can take to help bring the price down that won't put off your seller. So let's take a very specific example. This is a Radeon 7950 XFX Ghost Edition or something like that. I picked it up for 80 bucks flat, and that was actually the list price. This is another example of an item you just grab because it's in your target price range. But let's assume that I'm the seller and I'm selling this for $120 list price on Kijiji. Now, how can you as a buyer get me down in price? Well, number one, as I've mentioned in an older video from months ago, you can employ negging. Now, if you don't know what negging is, in the dating world, it's where you kind of insult a woman and compliment her at the same time. A perfect example is, "Oh, honey, that dress looked hideous in the catalog, but you wear it really well." Or like, "I don't care what everybody says, you are smart." Now, these are tactics I would never employ personally. Believe me, you can ask my girlfriend. I am not one of those guys. But when it comes to negotiating for hardware, I absolutely will. So what you can do in a case like this is you can say, "Oh, it's a great card. I wonder why it hasn't sold yet." Or you can be like, "Oh my God, there's so many of these available. I don't know which one to choose." Bottom line is, anything you can do without being rude or offensive to make him think that market conditions favor the buyer is going to be better for you. Secondly, and I've already touched on this in the last section, section. If the availability of a given item is broad and the buyer base is small, this of course gives you ample opportunity to negotiate the price down by putting out a lot of feelers, getting a lot of responses, and then using those responses against one another to try and bring the prices down even further. Well, let's say there are 10 Radeon 7950s of similar quality in the market, and you get 3 bites. And the first guy says, okay, I'll do it for 100 instead of 120, but you got to come pick it up tonight. Then you message the other 2 guys and you go, hey guys, I got another guy willing to do it for 100. If either of you can do 90, I'll go with yours instead, and I'll throw in a blowjob. And then they're going to, of course, be like, how fast can you get here? Anyhow, by the end of the night, you're going to have not 1, but 2 hot loads on your hands. But in all seriousness, when market conditions allow, use sellers against one another. Take their offers and use them to bait other sellers into dropping their prices. Tip number 3, nobody wants to marry an old maid. Now, of course, this is the 21st century. I'm not actually talking about women. I'm talking about listings that have been up for too long. See, when a listing is up for too long, it's usually a good sign that either the item has been mislisted, mistitled, isn't particularly descriptive, is lacking a picture, or the seller doesn't particularly care about how long it's up. They're just looking to get asking price. All of those minus the last one I said are good for you as a buyer because it gives you an opportunity to message them, remind them of just how long this item's been up, and maybe make a lowball offer and take it. Believe it or not, and take it from me, I was an eBay seller 10 or so years ago, and a very successful one at that. When you don't list an item properly and you don't put in the effort to sell it to the viewers, the price on average of that item depresses. Basically, people are going to put as much effort into buying your item as you put into selling it. Plain and simple. But of course, this is prime opportunity for someone like you who's in a position to buy. Never hurts to ask as long as you're polite. And that brings me to my 4th point, which is always be polite. Try to project an air of intelligence and don't be a dick. If you just message somebody with a dollar amount, in fact, you message somebody with just a number, you don't even bother to put the dollar sign in, they're going to dismiss you. In much the same way a lot of buyers will dismiss sellers that don't put effort into their ads. So put it this way, if you walk up to a hooker on the street and you just go up to her and you go, 80. Do you think she's gonna give you what you want for $80? No. But if you go up to her and you say, hey, I got $80. Have you got a half hour? You might get somewhere. She could be standing out there outside of the Harveys on Jarvis and just be like, you know what? He's right. I'm not doing anything for the next half hour, and $80 is $80. I mean, it's pussy. It's not oil. It's not like I'm going to run out of it. And buying a graphics card, mostly, is no different. If you approach the situation accordingly and use appropriate language and present yourself in a way that is at the very least pleasing to the ear of the seller, you will at the very least get their attention. And that brings me to my final point, which I think is the most important, so I will try to be as concise and clear as I possibly can, despite the complexity of the point, and that is this: no negotiation ends in an absolute satisfying compromise for both parties. As much as we would like to think we live in that kind of world, we don't. Somebody wins and somebody loses. Now, there are instances, of course, in the world where you can have not zero-sum trades, where a metal worker trades with woodworker for items they both need and everyone comes out ahead. That's not the case here. It's one person trying to buy an item off another person for an amount of money, and that amount of money is the variable. So ultimately, someone gonna lose. If you want to be the guy that's on the better end of that equation monetarily and save the most on money by bringing the price closer to where your target is, you can do this by being conciliatory in other regards. For starters, and this one should be pretty obvious, be willing to go to him. Take the legwork out of it for your seller. Just say, hey, if you do $80, I'll come and pick it up tonight, and I'll do it in any neighborhood you want me to do it in, behind any tree you want me to do it behind, whatever you want, I'll just do it. This is good news for the seller, obviously, because you get to save a few bucks on gas for one, and you get to spend more time with your family. So maybe that's more important to you than the $5 you're negotiating over. So there you go. You'll give in, you'll concede, and the buyer gets his way. I know it's kind of paradoxical, but another way you can get ahead is by being super nice. So at one point you're like, yeah, I'm great and lovely, but I'm going to take all your money. It just doesn't seem to compute. It doesn't make any sense. But it's the actual truth, and it does work. When you're at the negotiating table and you're trying to knock the price down a few bucks, use words like, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for for meeting with me today and even considering my offer. The nicer you are, the more successful you're going to be in life in general, I think, in the long run. And ultimately, you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar, or however the saying goes. And that, albeit cryptically, is still a form of concession you can make. You're winning monetarily, but they're winning in that they get to feel good about the transaction. It's a nice guy, you've done him a favor, you've given him a good deal, and you can walk away happy. And that really is the key I'm trying to stress here, is that they need to feel like they haven't just outright lost in every regard, and you can do this by giving them a few things that they win on. Another way you can be conciliatory, and I've said this in past videos, is you can ask them if they've got anything else for sale, which is something you should always do when going to make a pickup. So yeah, you're in the market for a graphics card, but maybe they have a Yeti microphone, Blackout Edition, that would look really nice in your setup, that they're selling for particularly cheap as well, and it's justifiable perhaps. And now all of a sudden you're proposing to them that you can buy 2 of their things in one trip, which is really appealing for someone who doesn't have a lot of time. Now this, once again, is a concession in a very cryptic sort of roundabout way. You are technically spending more money, but getting more value in return, granted you've done your research. So long story short, you get the bulk discount and get a bunch of cheap shit, and he feels like he accomplished more by selling more in volume. Another way you can be conciliatory is by having YouTube channel and promising to give people shoutouts if they sell to you. Of course, for this to be worth anything, you actually have to be popular. And I think that's all the advice I have for now on this particular subject. Anyhow, guys, that system that you saw earlier, just to close it out, is going to be featured in an upcoming video. It's actually a collaboration that I'm doing with Nerd on a Budget. Danny and I have been talking, and we're going to do a little something around Christmas time. I won't tell you exactly what it is yet, because I don't know if we've discussed teasing or promoting it, but just consider this to be your first warning that it's coming, so stay tuned. Follow me at Ofa on Twitter. Anything that I'm doing will be made known there first, because it's just easy. And that includes streaming, which I'm hoping will take place at some point this weekend, maybe tomorrow afternoon if I can convince Kate to join me. We'll play some Jackbox Party Pack 3, and I'll give away some more prizes as always. Thanks again. See you in the next one. I put this shirt back on.